Hey guys, it's Wolf Girl here. So Kayla from Balanced Thunder Horse Training, and today is Sakura's fourth day in a training routine. So this is where we start. The last couple sessions with her, I've started with lunging, and I wanted to do it a little differently this time. So I pulled out some reins to start working on some lateral flexion with her, and she got a little concerned here about the clips and the sound they made. So we just spent a few seconds here just kind of, figuring out that they weren't going to bite her and there was nothing wrong with them. She accepts them really quickly, which is something that I found is pretty normal for her. It doesn't take very long for her to accept something. But this is also a change in our routine. Usually I pull her out and we work a little bit on the lunge line. And I didn't want to get to the routine so much that she thinks every time we come out we need to start lunging. So I wanted to kind of get her brain thinking a little bit first because I was going to work more with her saddle today than anything else. Now I still am not going to get on her. I think she still needs a week or so. She's pretty stiff in her flexions. She doesn't have the best whoa yet. And she still gets a little nervous, so she still gets a little emotional and worked up when there's just too much pressure, which you'll see later in the video. So until she can completely control herself to the best of her ability, at least, we will stay off her back because I just don't want to put too much pressure on her yet. And again, she's only 3, so there's not a big rush here. So I go ahead and attach the reins, jiggle them around a little bit, let her hear them, because they are metal clips, and so they do make noise against her halter. Now, she has had a bit in her mouth before, but since she's still really stiff, I'd like for her to be a little softer and flex a little better with just her halter before I start really working her with a bit. I just think it'll be easier for her because she's kind of a sticky filly anyways. And I just want to make sure that I can do it with the least amount of pressure possible first before I add anything extra. So first thing I'm going to start off with is just some side flexions, and you can see here she's fairly sticky. She's trying, but she's kind of hanging on me a little bit. I don't particularly like to bump them. I think it kind of takes their head up. They get a little high-headed. However, on her right side, she does get a little heavy, so I do kind of bump her with it a little bit. And most of this, I'm just kind of waiting on her to figure it out. She is a little stiff, so it takes her a second to really want to give to the pressure. But I don't want to pull so much that she feels that she can just hang on it, which she's kind of started to do. She was really heavy when I first got her, and she's picking it up very quickly. I've just kind of noticed that she's the kind of horse that it works better if you give her the time to figure it out as opposed to forcing it and making it her only option. I've had other horses that if you give them the time to figure it out, you'll stand there all day waiting for them to give. And they work a little better with the bump process because they will take the options that you give them and not the options that are the easiest. She is definitely one of those horses that wait and take whichever option she feels easiest. So here it gets a little warm in the barn. It was supposed to storm today, which is why the horses are in, and unfortunately it did not, and it's very sunny out and it's pretty hot. So I go ahead and open the door because she's breathing a little heavier and she's a little sweaty already, and all we've been doing is standing around. And unfortunately this is off camera, but we're just working on her backs a little bit. She has a pretty nice give to the backs. She will back up without too much pressure. but she's still only taking a step or two at a time. And I think that's okay for right now. Probably within the week, I'm going to ask her to really kind of back off of that pressure a little faster, a little bit more of a step than just kind of that inching backwards. And then I move on, and I'm working on the same side, and I'm really just trying to get her to move her hip over. And like I said, she's pretty sticky, so she gets stuck sometimes. And she's picked it up on the lunge line pretty well, so when I go and direct my energy towards her hip, she will move over. But she still gets a little stuck on pressure, and I don't want to sit there and jab her hips until she goes. So eventually I kind of step backwards a little just to kind of help her understand the concept of what I'm asking. Because again, she's not really the kind of filly that just does better with more pressure. She does better if you give her the opportunity to understand. So for the first few times that I ask, I'm going to kind of step back and give her that opening. It does allow her to move her shoulders, so I keep my hand on her side and I keep the pressure until her actual hip disengages. But this way, since I can help her by stepping back, it at least gives her the freedom and the openness to move over. So then I move to her other side, and we're kind of working on the flexion over here. She does really well. She's actually fairly stiff on this side as far as flexions go, even though she's better at disengaging her hip. So I'm just kind of waiting. She does really well here with the first couple, and then she gets a little stuck here. She gets a little high-headed, and then she starts to move. So she's just kind of confused, so I stay with her, and I keep even pressure, and then she gets a little bit pushy in it, so I kind of bump her a little there. And then I move over to disengaging her hip, and she does much, much better on her right side than she does on her left as far as this part goes. And so again, she's still kind of walking forward, and I'm not going to nitpick her right now. She's still just getting the basic concepts of it. And then here, I'm just asking her to kind of give a little bit to the pressure on with equal pressure on both sides of the reins. I'm asking for her to kind of just back up a little bit and keep her head straight. And she takes a second and she figures it out. She actually does a really good job figuring it out. And then I only asked for one more. And she kind of turns left, right. She does back up here, but she's backing up with her head to the side. So I wait for her to straighten it up, back up, and then just kind of give a little bit. So she figures it out really well. And since the reins, me working with her and the reins have been a little new, I go ahead and reattach her lead rope and work on a little bit of the whoa, just to get her used to the word command. Her whoa is still a little slower than I'd like, especially for getting ready to start her under saddle. I want her to really have that word down, have a really nice stop to her. So here, I'm just kind of walking around, asking her to follow me, and I'm exaggerating my body language and my hands. So when I say the word whoa, I kind of throw up that brick wall with my energy in my body. And she does really, really well with it. So, and eventually we'll start moving up and we'll start doing it at the trot. But for right now, I just want her to get used to the word. So then I go back to some more flexions, and I kind of bounce around a little here because I don't want to get stuck doing the same thing for a long period of time because she gets bored very easily. And you can't see it from this angle, but she's doing really well. And here she gets a little high-headed, and then she gives really nicely. So I was really, really happy with her picking up on the flexion because she's definitely pretty stiff in her neck. And then when I do go to get on her eventually, I want to make sure that she's going to give me that head. So when I go and put pressure in the saddle, or if she gets nervous or gets really sticky, I don't have to yank on her too much from up high. And she does much better this time on her right side. Now that I've kind of given her a second to think about it. Here she's getting a little bullheaded in it, so I just kind of pull on her a little bit until she understands the concept of what I'm asking her. She thinks I'm trying to get her to back up, so she's moving and just trying to figure it out. She does give a little as she moves, but since she's moving her feet, I hold on to her until she completely stops and gives me her head. And here I'm just sticking with her. She's confused. She's trying to figure out what I want. And then there she understood it. She did very nice. And then she gets a little rooty in the pressure. So this is just her not really wanting to do it. So I just hold on to it a little bit. And then she gives really nicely. So I'm kind of just jiggling the reins around a little bit. She's kind of just being a little immature. She's just kind of pushing on it a little bit. So I just hold steady pressure up there until she's done. And I asked her to give again. And then she moves around, which is fine. This is more of her confusion coming out. She gives nicely. And this time there was absolutely no confusion, no fighting, no rooting, and she was great. And that's where I left that. So I go back again to asking her to disengage her hip, asking her to move over from the pressure. And again, she's still a little confused, so I take that little step back, but I keep my hand on her until her hip disengages. I don't take it off as soon as she starts to move because that's not what I'm asking for. And then I go ahead and remove the reins because it's really all I wanted to do as far as the work goes with that. I just want her to get used to a little bit each session at moving off of the side of her face as opposed to underneath. That way she can kind of understand where that pressure is coming from. It'll be a lot easier for her when she goes and takes the bit to understand that when it's coming from the side, you want to move to the side. So she does really, really good here with the saddle pad this time. I didn't really expect too much problem out of her. She was really interested in it, wanted to smell it. So instead of really just going back and forth at this time, since I know that she's been saddled before and I know she knows what it is, I just kind of throw it up there and I just leave it. Here she gets the feeling that she needs to walk off, so I go ahead and let her walk. I don't really hang on to her and make her stand still while I'm getting the saddle. And I just kind of let her move around a little bit. And again, she's very used to just going straight to the lunge line, which is one of the things I want to get her out of the habit for. So she stops, she comes up, she smells the saddle. And I just kind of flop it up there. I don't really baby step at this time. She's had it on before, so she's just going to have to learn that it's going to come on, it's going to come off, and it'll be okay. But I let her walk around with it, and then I ask her to stop, and then I take it back off. And I go ahead and take the pad and everything with it. That way she has a full release of pressure. And then this time when I go to throw it back up there, she gets a little worried about it, which is okay. I don't mind it. So I just kind of come up to her with it. And then I stick with her as she backs up. She's a little unsure. And then I ask her to follow it. It's something I like to do with all the horses. I just think it makes them more comfortable with what's getting ready to be put on them. She's not real sure about it, so I ask her to come forward, check it out, and then I do a little bit of approach and retreat. I am holding all of it. I am just kind of flinging it up there. So I'm going to get her used to the motion of just kind of tossing it up there, making some noise. And she does really well. And then I kind of back off of her, let her think about it a second, and then I go back to it. And this time as I walk up and I come back, you can see she's kind of really interested in me when I back up, and she's just like not really understanding what's going on. But I like the fact that she's following me when I leave her. And then I just go up and I put the whole thing on her. I'm not worried about cinching it up. She's just going to take it, put it on her, and then I let her be. Now she gets a little worried here because I switched sides, which is okay. I just ask her to stop and deal with it. And then I come over here and I take it off the opposite side. And again, most horses I found are on their right side as their offside, and for her it's actually the left. She seems to be she's better on the forehand on the left side and better on the hind end on the right side. So I just have her follow it, and again she's trying to put me on her right side. So I move her a little bit more just so I can get some easy access to the left, having her follow the saddle while it's making some noise. She wants to check it out. And then I just kind of do the same thing. I just kind of walk up to her and back up. And then as she starts to back up, I just kind of stay with her. And unfortunately, we go off camera a little bit here. And then eventually she stops. And she is still trying to put me on her right side. So I just kind of stick with it and I stay up closer to her head. That way she can't turn into me and put me on the side I'm not really trying to get to. And so here I'm just lifting the saddle up and down and backing away. That way she can get the information that she needs from it. And I just stay here with her as she moves. And then I set it up on there. And I take it back off. So I go ahead and put the stirrup and the cinch up. That way when I put it on this time, I can go to the opposite side and release it. And here she gets a little stuck, so I just kind of egg her on a little. Ask her to follow me. She does get a little nervous about the lunge line laying on the ground and moving. And again, she's trying to put me on her right side, so I just go back to her left. And then we went off camera for a little bit as I put the saddle up on there. But pretty much I just stuck with her for several minutes as she kept kind of backing up while she got used to the saddle. And she's a little nervous about it today. The wind's blowing really, really hard, so she's a little frisky. It's not a big deal. I just let her go with it. My fender's a little turned around here too, so. But I don't mess with it too much. And again, as I do all this, I'm not really trying to make her stay still. If she feels like she needs to move, that's fine. And I just continue what I'm doing until she stops. I don't want to force her to be still as I mess with the saddle, because I want it to be her option. I want it to be her choice to stand there and let me do whatever it is that I want to do. So here I'm just kind of cinching her up. She's chilling out. She's just hanging. She's listening, paying attention to what I'm doing. A little concerned about it, but she's being a really, really good horse at the moment. So there's nothing that she's doing that gives me any indication that she's having issues or that she's struggling with the pressure that I'm putting on her. I do have her on a little bit shorter of a lead. That way if she does go to walk off, I can keep her in a smaller circle since I am in the middle of trying to cinch the saddle. And you see there, she's licking and chewing. This is while I'm tightening it up, so she's doing a really nice job accepting the pressure from the cinch and the weight of the saddle on her back. Now, I don't have a back cinch on this saddle, and it also makes a lot of noise, and it's kind of top heavy, so the back flops around a lot. And I'm kind of actually looking forward to it to see how she does at the trot with this. And you'll see a little bit in a moment when I kind of send her out with it, that when I ask her to change directions, she gets a little bit too much in the pressure. Same thing she did when we started adding the whip to the lunge, and I was asking her to change direction with it, and she kind of tried to push through me. And so I just kind of send her off here. This is the first time I've actually cinched her up, so I didn't really want to just walk in front of her, so I just kind of let her walk. I don't expect anything at the walk with her. She keeps a pretty level head. She decides to grab a snack on the way through. And then I ask her to change directions, and she does a really nice job. She's really getting down the body language that I'm using and the direction changes that I'm asking from her. This lunch session was also much better than the last one. I didn't have to tip on her head too much. She kept getting a little distracted by the hay and the other horses, but for the most part, she did a really nice job at kind of just keeping her body bent towards me. And so here, I'm really just trying to get her to speed up her walk, just kind of actively move forward. That way I can get her prepared to trot. And then I'm going to ask her to move off. And I got to kind of get after her a little bit. And then she moves. It's very nice. It's very balanced. And as you can see, she gets a little worried moving into the trot. The saddle's bouncing around a little bit. So it's not a big deal. Here I go to ask her to change directions. She kind of freaks out a little. Got a little couple of little bucks there. No big deal. I just asked her to keep walking and just manage it. She starts licking and chewing. She did a really nice job pushing through that little moment. So I asked her to change directions here at the walk so I can send her trotting off the other direction. Again, she gets a little stuck. She's a little confused. They're not using the whip this time, so I didn't want too much pressure with the saddle on. She does a good job. She does much better, like I said, on her left side. So this time around, she's just trotting. She's cool with it. There's nothing really bugging her as far as the saddle goes. Her head actually stays at a pretty nice level. It's still a little high. And then I ask her to stop and change directions. But since she stopped so well and she started licking and chewing, I went ahead and waited before I asked her to go off again. And here she's turning around. She's trying to check out what's on her, checking out the cinch and the stirrups that are flopping against her side. So I give her that second to kind of turn around and check it out. And then here I'm pushing her back up into the trot. Then I ask her to stop. She stops nicely, so I give her a moment. And then I send her back off in the same direction because she anticipated turning around. So here I stop, and now I'm asking her to change, and I'm asking her to change with it. So she gets a little stuck on this side, so I just kind of push her. And then I'm just kind of asking her to speed up her walk just a little, make it a little more active. And then again, I'm asking her to change directions. And I don't do too much trot or lope work. I actually don't do any lope work in the barn on the lunge line, not at her age, and I don't do any kind of too much trot work in the barn, again, because the ground is super, super hard. And here I'm asking her to actually stop. So I give her the whoa, and I'd like for her to turn into me again. So I just ask her to turn and face me, and she does a really nice job. And then here I just do a little bit of desensitizing with the saddle. She's had it on, so I just kind of flop it around a little bit. She does great. She's not really worried about too much. And again, I just let her walk. I let her move, and then I don't stop until she stops. And I'm not trying to make her stay in place. Like I said, I really, really want her to make that choice on her own. That way, when I do go to get on her, it's her choice to stand still. That way, when she does act up, she needs to be responsible for her own actions. And I want to start that on the ground before I get in the saddle. And so I'm just keeping a loose hold onto her lead rope, flopping around, and then I start to kind of bang on the saddle in any different directions, trying to make as much noise as I can. And overall, she just does a really nice job with all of this. So here, I just ask her to give a little, and she moves, and it's just her asking some questions, so I just kind of wait on her, and she does a really nice job. So then I just put the tip of my foot in the stirrups and just put a little bit of weight on it. Then I do it again with my hands. She does really, really well here. So she kind of walks off, so I just kind of keep putting that weight there. Just turn her a little bit towards me till she stops, and then I let the pressure go. So she's wanting to follow me here. She's wanting to get over, get her hay. So I let her move her feet a little bit. As you can see, she's breathing a little heavy. It's pretty hot in the barn right now. So we don't do too much more work. And I try to keep my sessions all within about a 30-minute time period, give or take 5 minutes either direction. At her age, I don't do much more than that. Occasionally, if I make it a really short session, I'll do a second one in the evening. But most of the time, it's just a half an hour a day right now. And I just do odd and end things that way she doesn't get bored and doesn't get burnout. But at her age and her level of experience, I can't ask for much more than what she's given me today. She tries really, really hard. And so she's dealing with all the pressure really well. And then when she turns in and looks at me, I let her go completely. So there she got a little nervous. My energy kind of upped because I went and acted like I was going to get on her, and that's okay. I want her to be able to move her feet and learn that that's the wrong answer. And again, she's getting a little stuck in the neck. Now, she did receive her vaccines yesterday. So again, that's why I'm not really pulling on and cranking her neck, because I know it's already sore and a little stiff. And again, she does a really nice job. There's several times she gets a little concerned, gets a little confused, and we just kind of walk through it. And here, before I put pressure in the stirrups, I'd like for her to take her head down. She gets a little high-headed on her right side. So I just ask for a couple of gives here before I hold her in place. And at this point, I'm really just putting weight in the saddle, letting her feel the change of pressure and the saddle move just a little bit. And she does excellent. So I just kind of let her move out a little bit. And I ask her to give me the whoa and turn and face me. She does a really, really nice job. And so this is where I decide to end it. So I go ahead and I give her her release and I undo the saddle and I take it off completely. I do give her a few minutes afterwards. I don't catch it on camera, but she tries to bite the saddle pad and just kind of play with it a little bit. And I let her do that. I give her the opportunity to just kind of check out all the equipment that's been on her and really just play with it. You can see here she's really paying attention to what I'm doing. And you can see she's a little tense, a little nervous. And I don't pull it all off right away. I like to put my stirrup up and also my girth first before I take the saddle completely off. So I go ahead and kind of teach them that early. And this is where I end it. So thanks guys for watching. And if you enjoyed, like or follow the video, and I'll see you next time.